In Barack Obama's world, you say things you need to say to get through a tough day, a tough month, a tough election. Whether it's true or not isn't as important as whether it's plausible, whether voters will buy it. Actually, it's not even that. It's whether the pro-Obama media will buy it. Like on Obamacare, just tell them what they want to hear long enough to get the bill passed.
So let me begin by saying this to you and to the American people. I know that there are millions of Americans who are content with their health care coverage. They like their plan, and most importantly, they value their relationship with their doctor. They trust you. And that means that no matter how we reform health care, we will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor.
Yeah, but once the law was enacted and that promise turned out not to be true and millions of Americans lost their insurance, what were people going to do, though? It was already done. Sometimes Obama's promise breaking is a good thing, of course.
This needs to be the year Congress lifts the remaining restrictions on detainee transfers and we close the prison at Guantanamo Bay.
Well, we're all safer because Obama broke that promise to release more than 100 of the hardest core al-Qaeda terrorists he's still got on that Cuban island. But the thing is, the more a guy flip-flops, goes wobbly, delays keeping a promise, or just plain lies, the more the world takes his measure. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Some gullible folks will still believe Obama no matter what. People don't really care what he says, or people who are in the tank for him, like the media party, which is overwhelmingly left-wing. But what about more serious characters out there? Serious, tough, cynical people, say like a former KGB agent? I'm talking, of course, about Vladimir Putin. Now, he would have sized up Obama and seen North Korea scoff at American power with impunity, and seen Iran wrap Obama around his finger and actually receive huge economic payoffs merely for negotiating, and seen Obama's public statements about America's place in the world, that it would be a small place in the world, a meek place in the world. Putin would have studied, for example, this video clip carefully, probably watching it again and again.
You subscribe, as many of your predecessors have, to the school of American exceptionalism that sees America as uniquely qualified to lead the world, or do you have a slightly different philosophy? And if so, would you be able to elaborate on it?
I believe in American exceptionalism, just as I suspect that the Brits believe in British exceptionalism and the Greeks believe in Greek exceptionalism.
Oh, that radiates power. I've shown you that clip before, but here's a new one. I think Vladimir Putin would have studied this next clip by Samantha Power. That's Obama's UN ambassador. I think Putin would have watched this again and again, too.
What has weakened U.S. security is this perception that we are arrogant, that we basically, there are all these regimes we won't talk to, and that we have all the answers for world peace.
Arrogant America. That's the U.S. ambassador. I think Putin would have been emboldened watching these videos. He would have thought, what can I get away with here? He would have wondered. He would have taken baby steps. At first, cautious steps, finding his new boundaries, and then he would have seen this stunning come down last year over Syria. He would have seen Obama talking tough about attacking Syria in response to their alleged use of chemical weapons against their own people. Look.
I announced that as Commander-in-Chief, I decided that the United States should take military action against the Syrian regime. This is not a decision I made lightly. Deciding to use military force is the most solemn decision we can make as a nation.
So he was dead serious, very solemn. And then literally the night before the attacks were to start, Putin would have seen Obama just plain old abandon any plan for military action.
First of all, I didn't set a red line. The world set a red line.
That's my favorite line. He just announced he wasn't going to do it. Obama just plain asked the world to forget he ever said anything about Syria, and the compliant media did forget it, but Putin didn't forget it. He made notes. Actually, he didn't just make notes. He pushed himself into the void left by Obama. He set himself up as the great peacemaker in Syria. He, Putin, who's Syria's chief arms dealer, who is a Russian naval port in Syria, who has been Syria's guardian at the United Nations. Putin actually managed to turn Syria into a symbolic moment of Putin's own regard for peace. That's how bad Obama is at negotiating and bluffing and plain old making decisions. When Putin invaded Crimea a few weeks ago, he was making a move, not a huge move, but his biggest one yet. And he heard Obama's Secretary of State, John Kerry, make a threat, this threat.
if there is no sign of any capacity to be able to move forward and resolve this issue, there will be a very serious series of steps on Monday in Europe and here with respect to the options that are available to us.
Wow, serious steps. Maybe just for a moment, Putin would have worried that he went too far. But within 24 hours of saying that, Kerry himself has capitulated, calling off his ultimatum and conceding that Russia had a moral right to interfere in Ukraine.
President Obama and I could not be more convinced that there is a better way for Russia to pursue legitimate interests in Ukraine. We believe it is not insignificant that we acknowledge there are legitimate interests, historical, cultural, current strategic. These are real interests. And I think all of us who are joined together in the EU and extended contact group understand those interests and are prepared to respect them.
So Russia just plain old invaded Ukraine, old school style. A bit of KGB trickery. First, they had some grassroots protests in Ukraine with ordinary people calling for Russia to come in and save them. And then Putin sent in thousands of special forces pretending they were natural grassroots Ukrainian militias, just ordinary folks really, who wanted to join Russia. And these armed militants attacked military installations, government buildings. By the time the unconstitutional, illegal referendum on annexation happened, where both questions were essentially a yes to Putin, it was all done. It was the Syria debacle all over again, except instead of a Russian colony, Syria, being saved from a few pinprick missile attacks, it was a formerly independent country of Ukraine that was cut up and swallowed up. When that Monday, that threatened Monday finally came, when Kerry said would be the day of judgment, precisely 7 Russians were hit with American sanctions, as in 7 individual Russians, not the whole country, not Vladimir Putin himself, 7 people, that's it. And those sanctions were later expanded very slightly, but so what? Simply in terms of economic gain, Russia grabbed priceless land and resources worth billions. It grabbed the Ukrainian port of Sevastopol that Russia had been renting for its navy at the cost of billions of dollars. Let me say that again. Russia had been paying billions of dollars in rent to Ukraine just to use that port for their navy. And now they just took the port. Oh, and they took the Ukrainian navy too, just boarding their ships and taking them billions of dollars. That's how billions of dollars. It's not even a Cold War style attack. The thing about the Cold War is that we actually managed to contain the Soviet Union through strength and preparedness and seriousness. Putin knows he faces in Obama someone who would have surrendered in the Cold War, who can be pushed back by anyone. No Soviet leader in the Cold War would have dared to test a U.S. president or Secretary of State by invading an independent country. Putin did, and he profited from it. And he's about to do it again in other eastern Ukrainian regions, including the city of Donetsk. And Obama? He's a bit busy right now, see? I mean, Russia's about to pour into eastern Ukraine, just like they did into Crimea, just like Putin says he's going to do, just like he did a few weeks ago. But Obama is busy at a fundraiser for Al Sharpton, a hard left-wing TV host on MSNBC and a professional race baiter whose public exhortations have led to race riots. Obama's too busy hanging out with that charlatan. That's what he was doing on Friday. Obama has skipped many of his national security briefings, about half of them. He skipped them on Syria, he skipped them on Ukraine. He'll skip all that boring stuff so he can hang out with the celebrities anytime. You don't think Putin sees that? After the last invasion that profited Russia billions of dollars immediately, but much more, it increased Russia's land. It increased its nationalism. Putin's own poll numbers are in the 70 to 80% range. After that, Obama actually went on TV to tell Putin that it's okay. Obama was working on a face-saving way for Putin to slowly back down. Back down? Putin won. He won in every way. The West lost. Ukraine lost. America lost. But Obama thinks that Putin wants some way out of his total, absolute victory. Here's what he told a newspaper in Holland. Obama said, "The United States does not view Europe as a battleground between East and West, nor do we see the situation in Ukraine as a zero-sum game. That's the kind of thinking that should have ended with the Cold War," unquote. So that's the best Obama had, to accuse Putin of Cold War thinking. But it's not Cold War thinking. No Soviet would have dared to take such liberties during the Cold War. Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher would not have allowed it. Now, you might be asking, well, what's Obama supposed to do? Surely he shouldn't go to war against Putin over scraps of Ukraine. Well, Reagan and Thatcher didn't go to war either. Their preparedness and seriousness and toughness ensured there wouldn't be a war because no Soviet would dare test them. It's precisely Obama's weakness and inattentiveness and an unreliability that has caused this war. That and his secret promises to Vladimir Putin. I'll show you what I mean by that after the break. Never during the Cold War, when the Soviets were at their military peak compared to America, when they were proportionately equal to America's might, never did they attempt what they have just done in Ukraine. So why do they think they can do so now, in the face of a vastly richer, stronger America? Well, it's not just Obama's moral weakness and unreliability. It's what Obama says directly to Putin and his henchmen.
This is my last election for you. Yeah, after my election, I have more flexibility. Yep. Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand.
Do you know how flexible Obama is being? He has given Putin a lengthy window to do anything he wants to Ukraine. Here's what I mean. Last week, Obama announced that Vice President Joe Biden is going to visit Ukraine, but not until April 22nd, more than a week away. What is there, no airplane available? Is Joe Biden too busy judging some chili cook-off somewhere? Why wait more than another week? Stephen Harper went to Ukraine weeks ago for a symbolic statement of resolve. Obama and Biden have refused to do so, and they will only do so in 8 days with the goofy vice president. That is a signal to Putin that he can do whatever he wants until then. Capture what he can, annex what he can. America's too busy doing trivia to care until later on in the month. Imagine how terrifying to Ukrainians this total lackadaisical attitude from America must be. To people in Poland, too, to others in countries along the Russian border. That's one lesson that Obama and Putin are teaching the world together. If you are a friend of America, that doesn't mean America is a friend of yours. You can't count on America anymore, so you better get busy protecting yourself, either arming yourself to the teeth, including maybe getting your own nuclear weapons, or get busy surrendering or realigning yourself with the new bully in town, Vladimir Putin. America won't protect you. Maybe Russia will. Maybe you're safer cutting a deal with Putin rather than opposing him. How far the Democrats have fallen since John F. Kennedy. How long ago this speech by him seems.
Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
You can't even imagine those words coming out of Obama's mouth. As I mentioned this before, that America's friends can no longer count on it. But America's enemies can no longer count on America either. Here's what I mean by that. In the past, under Richard Nixon, who went to China, under Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, America was tough. But when America reached out to its enemies diplomatically with an offer of peace, it could be trusted there too. So when Reagan negotiated arms treaties with Russia, the Russians could trust that Reagan meant it. Same thing after 9/11. When America crushed Saddam Hussein, other enemies of America took notice, and some of them decided that rather than fighting, they'd like to come over to our side, like Libya and the half-crazy Muammar Gaddafi. Gaddafi had been he was a leading international sponsor of terrorism, including blowing up the Pan Am 747 jet over Lockerbie, Scotland, that killed 270 people. Gaddafi was a global menace. But after 9/11 and Bush's invasion of Iraq, when America looked strong and determined, Gaddafi did the math, and he decided to come clean. He literally paid more than $1 billion to the families of people he killed on that Pan Am jet, as well as another jet Gaddafi admitted to bombing in Africa. It was the first time in history that a state sponsor of terrorism not only pled guilty, but paid millions of dollars to every single victim's family. That was an incredible feat, and it happened just 6 months after 9/11. That is no coincidence. And then Gaddafi came clean about his deadlier secrets. Gaddafi had built a nuclear reactor and was aggressively pursuing a bomb. It also had a chemical weapons industry too. Gaddafi agreed to abandon those. He did this. I'm not saying he wiped his moral slate clean. He's surely still burning in hell. But he did more than any terrorist dictator in history to mend his ways, and he did it with a deal. He made a deal with America. He didn't bring in full democracy, of course. Libya is basically a few cities and a lot of desert and some oil fields. Gaddafi believed that if Libya had a vote, it would just vote for a terrorist party like Egypt briefly did with the Muslim Brotherhood. But Obama wanted to push Gaddafi further, even after the deal. So despite the signed treaty with America, despite abandoning their nuclear and chemical weapons, and despite paying billions of dollars to his terrorism victims, despite being a major oil supplier to Europe, Obama simply launched a war against Libya without declaring war formally, I might add, and drove Gaddafi from power. Obama aided terrorist-backed rebel groups who ran over the country. This is a video of how they finally killed Gaddafi. It's graphic. Turn your eyes away if you can't stomach violence. Take a look. This is what Obama did to Gaddafi, not directly, but those were his allies. And Obama provided the air cover. They murdered him. And what replaced Gaddafi was a lawless anarchy that then led to the al-Qaeda terrorist attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi that killed the U.S. ambassador and 3 others. Here's my point. It's about trusting an American president to keep his word, to keep his nerve, both as an enemy and a friend. Gaddafi was an anti-American dictator. He wasn't as brutal as North Korea's Kim Jong-un, and he certainly killed more, though, than Kim has. He wasn't as powerful as Iran's dictators are today. He isn't as religiously extremist. He wasn't as powerful, but he was 15 years ahead of them in terms of weapons of mass destruction. So America did a deal with Libya and Gaddafi, and then stabbed him in the back. Actually, they let the al-Qaeda thugs stab him in the back, didn't they? What's the likelihood that an enemy of America, like Iran or North Korea, let alone Vladimir Putin, would trust Obama to do a deal? Obama abandoned Egypt's Hosni Mubarak, who had been an American ally for decades. Obama sided with the terrorist Muslim Brotherhood instead. It is dangerous being an ally of America. But this monologue is about Ukraine, and it is Ukraine who, much more than Libya or Egypt, is finding out that Obama's word means nothing. I told you this before. In 1994, Ukraine had the 3rd most nuclear weapons in the world. But the United States convinced Ukraine to give them up. Ukraine and Russia signed a treaty called the Budapest Memorandums on Security Assurances. And it was guaranteed by America. The key promise was that in return for giving up its nukes, Ukraine would be protected from Russia. Russia signed the treaty, but Ukraine didn't trust them. But Ukraine trusted America to enforce this key provision of the treaty, that Russia would, and I quote, reaffirm their obligation to refrain from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of Ukraine. Ukraine gave up its nukes in return for an American promise of protection. Obama has broken that promise, just like he broke his promise to Muammar Gaddafi and instead had him killed. Just like he broke his short-lived promise to punish Syria's dictator. Just like he broke his promise to stand by Egypt. Obama is a liar. His friends can't trust him, but neither can his enemies. Once upon a time, there might have been someone in North Korea or Iran who would have thought, maybe we should come clean, get rid of our nukes, and join the West. But after those dictators watched how Obama treats the last few enemies who made the fateful decision to become America's friends, well, would you trust Obama enough to give up your nuclear weapons